What's up, Tyler here. Focusing, this is my sixth vlog entry. I'm going to be doing based on a personal message, like I sent out, about shallow running crankbaits. Now, this shallow running crankbaits is the square bill model of the crankbaits. But quickly before I start about crankbaits, I think that everybody should choose their favorite type of crankbait, fish a lot of different styles until you find your favorite. Because my main thing I like to use is the Striking Pro model. Not only do I like the way they run, but for the main reason being is you find out little nuances of how the bait runs and the brand of the bait and how that bait runs under the water. You know, how deep it runs, what kind of wobble it has, and all that. And this is important because like when you're hung up in something, you'll be able to feel that little bit of a difference in the bait. So just choose your favorite. Stick with one type of brand for the most part is my opinion, so that's my 2 cents for that. But now shallow running crankbaits are just that they run a lot shallower than deeper divers with the longer bills. They have this it has a really exaggerated wobble to it, and this style bill is gonna allow it to deflect off a cover, and that's the main aspect in fishing this way. So I'm going to mainly be focusing on how deadly this lure can be when it's deflecting off a cover and stuff like that. So I'm going to mainly be fishing in water no deeper than 6 feet, mainly staying on the banks, fishing at visible targets like your docks, you know, your tree limbs and all that. So, but where I like to fish this is, especially in the early spring or the middle about the spring when the shads start to spawn and the minnows start to spawn, and the summer when the bluegills start to spawn. Now, I have a couple baits picked out for that, colors I should say. Now for the shad spawn, sexy shad does not beat that. You know, sexy shad is the best, in my opinion, best mimicking of the shad. But also it mimics a lot of different varieties of minnow type of forage. Now, for when I'm fishing for bluegills and sunfishing that, I opt for this sexy sunfish color. It's really good in clear water. It mimics the forage really well. But when I'm fishing a little bit more stained, more darker water, I like to fish this chartreuse back, or this blueback chartreuse belly type of bluegill mimicking crankbait. Especially deadly on smallmouth, I should say, but it's just a little quick tip. But now for my gear that I'm going to be using when I'm doing this is a 6'6" rod. This is a Team Daiwa series with a really fast tip. Now, you're going to want extreme casting accuracy because you're going to be getting that bait in little tight holes. Now, Kevin Van Dam says something to the effect, I'm not kind of paraphrasing, but you know, the tighter the angle that you get your bait into, the more likelihood that there's going to be a fish there. So I mean, that's hold true. I believe in that. It's hasn't been really proved wrong. So, but also that, you know, this short rod fast tips can give you a lot of control, high accuracy, and also fast tips can allow you to whip littler baits like the Series 1 with a little bit better control, you know, on a heavier line. So I also fish with a Quantum Energy PT with it's a 7-to-1 gear ratio. Now 7-to-1 gear ratio is because you're going to want that bait to be running really fast. You're not going to want a 5-to-1 like I do for normal cranking, deep cranking, because you know you don't need that bait to get down to its maximum depth. You want to get that bait just whipping right back as soon as it hits the water. So that's why I opt for a 7-to-1 gear ratio, and always bait casting equipment, always casting equipment. It's kind of a no-brainer, but you know, heavy line, you're gonna be able to fish heavy line. A lot more casting accuracy. It's faster. You get a faster gear ratio reel. So, but you know, I like to fish heavy line. Like I said, 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon for the most part. Heavier line is going to create a lot of drag in the water, let that bait run a lot higher in the water column. Also, you're gonna be fishing around a lot of cover. So now that heavy line is going to allow you to pull the fish out without really worrying about snapping off. But always check your line for frays and all that. So some people like monofilament. So, but I fish fluorocarbon for the most part for all my situations. So I just keep it consistent. But monofilament makes sense. You know, it runs higher in the water column because it floats. It's a little bit thicker diameter. It's going to create a little bit more drag. You know, But I just fish fluorocarbon. That's just my preference. But now a couple tips on fishing the lure. A shallow crankbait is going to have a lot more triggering qualities than it, let's say if you're fishing a jig or a worm or something like that. Really depending on how you fish them. Now, this is really caters to people like I like to fish a lot, like power fishermen. You know, because you can fish really fast. You can cover a whole lot of water as you wouldn't with the jig or the crankbait or the jig or the worm. So, cover tons of water with this technique. Now, it's it's fast moving, mimics the forest real well. It's just power fishermen's it's always in their arsenal. So, but the fast moving, it's gonna cater to when your fish are in all feeding modes. Negative, neutral, or when they're really active. Negative and neutral, it's gonna trigger out those inactive fish when they're just holding really tight to cover. It's going to whip by their face really fast, bounce off of that, cause it to look like a bait in distress. That fish will just out of instinct eat that lure because they're opportunistic. They can change like that, So they're going to hit it even if they're really negative. So you can fish this in colder water too. But and also it works when they're active too, when they're chasing like huge pods of bait and stuff like that. You can whip this right in the middle of that pod and it mimics it really well. So works in all types. Little quick another thing is the best time I found to fish this is when it's tough day, high wind or no wind I should say, so there's no chop in the water, nothing to break up anything. So high sun, no clouds, really tough days, bluebird sky days. So power fishermen also, spinnerbait is a big thing, but in this time of day, the spinnerbait's going to be really gaudy, and a lot of times, like all the flash and vibration, it's going to throw the fish off and just turn them off a little bit. So, but there's obviously an exception to this. Every rule in fishing has at least 5 to 10 exceptions. Whatever. But it's just you pretty much got to figure out what the exceptions are to the rules. There's really so many of them, so many contradictions in fishing. But I just stating that for the most part, crankbaits in high sun, bluebird days. Now you're fishing for reaction strikes, like I stated a bunch of times. But so when you're going to be deflecting off of a whole lot of cover. So when your lure hits something, pause your retrieve and let the bait float up. It's going to make it look like it's a bait in distress, and that fish will smack it. Like I said, they just can't stand it. But it's not going to get hung up. But when it does, for the most part, it doesn't get hung up. But when it does, like in a weed clump or something, just pause it and let it just float out. Sometimes it'll float out, it'll shake those weeds out by themselves. So, also, when you're fishing, don't just reel it straight in, Jerk it, stop your retrieve a lot, do all that kind of good stuff. Keep your rod tip high. I forgot to say that, it keeps the bait running at a high in the water column. It keeps you can a little bit more control and all that. So frequent starts and stops, jerks, everything to trigger a reaction. You're fishing for reaction strikes, like I said. But for that, I'm just going to get going. I hope this helps a little bit. I kind of just scratched the surface on this type of fishing, but keep watching my stuff. Subscribe if you want. But like I said, going to get going. So peace out.